Welcome to the Emotional Horsemanship podcast. I am your host, Lockie Phillips, and I help deeply caring equestrians create emotionally balanced horses with science, empathy, and feel. This podcast is a safe place for anyone who desires a better future for horses and for the equestrian lifestyle. I hope that you will enjoy these solo and collaborative episodes where we enjoy a deep insight into our horses' worlds and ways in which we can make that better for them. If you love horses and are willing to do right by them, you're going to love this podcast. And I thank you for being here. My guest on the podcast this week is Amy Skinner of Amy Skinner Horsemanship. Amy embraces a training philosophy based in classical dressage and sound horsemanship practices. Amy keeps the best interests of the horse and rider in mind, choosing to avoid fads and quick fixes, but to seek continual learning from the best teacher available to us, the horse. Amy came onto the podcast during a period of change in her life, and she is well known for her humility, her directness, her humor, and her honesty. And she certainly brought all of that here to the podcast this week. Thank you, Amy. I had a lot of fun talking to you. How are you today?
Sounds good. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for spending some time with me here on a Sunday. First question, are you wearing pants?
I am wearing pants because I just had to go outside, so I did put the pants on.
No, I was hoping you would say no, and we could call this Feels Like Pants Off episode or something like that. But
well, the pants of my heart will come off, so don't worry.
Pants on fire.
Yes, that's right.
So I start these conversations with the same big question. The point is not to answer the question. The point is just to hear you talk.
Okay.
Amy Skinner, who are you? What do you do? And how do you do it?
Well, that is an excellent question because all of those questions are answers that I am currently thinking about as well. So my life is in a huge state of flux. I am in the middle of a divorce, getting ready to move out of the state, and just closed down my training barn. So I'm pivoting my entire life. So yeah, It's a good question. Yeah.
Damn. I'm just going to wipe the look of shock off my face. And I'm going to replace that with empathy and tenderness. Are you okay?
I'm actually doing great. Thank you. The beginning was rough when it first all started to bubble up. That was hard, but I'm actually excited now that I've gotten through the first bit. I'm excited to see what I'm going to do, who I'm going to be, and what life is going to be like.
Please tell me you have a therapist.
I have a great therapist. Yes, I do.
Fantastic. Because it sounds like, I think like as soon as you start your equestrian LLC or similar relative to your country, it should come with a really good accountant and a very good therapist. Those two things should be part of the entry-level package of starting your equestrian business. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I got interested in therapy way too late, but at least I did it, you know?
Yeah, me too. Me too. Can I ask how old you are now?
I'm 35.
So 1989?
Yep.
I'm 1990.
Oh, cool.
Millennials unite in this late stage capitalist hellscape, I like to say.
I was just going to pick that word.
Yeah, hellscape. So you're a horse trainer. How long have you trained horses?
I've been at it a little over 10 years now.
Cool. So about the similar time that I've been into it. Is this the only job you've had, or did you have a prior career?
This is my only career I've ever had. I've had a brief stint as shitty cashier, shitty waitress, shitty lawnmower, shitty at everything but this. So
that's very candid of you. What's it like being a shitty lawnmower? What constitutes a shitty job of lawn mowing?
you get bored and you take too long and you get distracted and you start doing tasks that are not essential to the overall task. So you can be shitty at lawn mowing. Yes, I have proven that.
Do you have something like an ADHD diagnosis or similar?
I don't, but it has been pointed out to me by many, many people because I am hyper focused on my career, but I cannot focus on anything else.
So we can lovingly ascribe to you, and this is why I'm going to get cancelled, the term neurospicy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, could be. Cool. My daughter is neurospicy, so I mean, it probably didn't come out of nowhere.
Wow. So how do you go from being a cashier, shitty lawnmower, shitty waitress, to a really good horse trainer with an international reputation and clinic business, training business, all of the above? How did you do that?
Well, I wanted desperately to be a horse trainer. I actually have in a journal somewhere in my closet that I'm unpacking right now, the list of jobs I was going to have in order. And it was going to be stable hand and then jockey and then astronaut and then ballerina and then horse trainer.
Okay.
And I started at the bottom. I skipped out ballerina and astronaut and all that stuff.
I got the ballerina covered for you. Did that.
I know.
Got the t-shirt.
Super jealous. Yeah.
Got the t-shirt. It's like
and the trauma.
And the trauma ready to go. Oh, and the great experiences as well. Astronaut and ballerina. I'm going to say, I think astronaut might be easier. I don't know. I can neither confirm nor deny, but that's a pretty wacky combination. I used to dream of being a jockey as well when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then my mum said, oh no, you'd be too tall. And that instantly dashed my fears, my hopes and dreams on the rocks.
Yeah. Well, I was too heavy by the time I was 12, so that was...
Damn. Are you tall?
I'm 5'7". Well, I don't know what I am in the metric system. I'm tallish.
Nobody
I know.
does.
I'm just your typical American, uneducated, ignorant.
No, I think you're the American girl next door. Corn-fed American girl next door becomes horse trainer. Shitty waitress becomes horse trainer. Where's Steven Spielberg? It's going to be a movie at some point. Like this is the story that's old as a hill, it's a grassroots movement. So why horse training?
I don't know. I was that kid who would point at the horses going down the street. We didn't have animals. We didn't have like horses in my family. And it was the thing I dreamed of. I took riding lessons wherever I could, it's a military family. So we bounced around a lot, but that was always in the background. And when I moved out of the house, I was desperate to work with horses again, but I had no experience. And so I couldn't get a job. So I started doing, the trading off, like cleaning stalls for lessons. And then I started riding the school horses that had problems with absolutely no experience and absolutely no knowledge. But that's how I wheedled my way in. And then lo and behold, the training gig came one day after cleaning stalls for years because the barn manager got so drunk she beat up her boyfriend and was arrested and kicked off the property. And then all of her students showed up and I got to teach them. And years later, this is
I love it. I love it. So you're a first generation horse person, just like me.
Yes.
You're self-made, first generation. And so many of folks like us who are getting into this, we're not Nepo babies. We're not getting into this through family money, family land, family horses. No hate to those folks who do. I'm jealous of you. I'm jealous of you.
Yes.
Allow me to be imperfectly jealous of them.
Me too.
The entry into this career, if you're not a millionaire, the entry into this career is usually by eating shit for quite a long time.
A long time, yes.
Dealing with the dregs of the industry, both people and horses. And I use that term affectionately because we're fringe dwellers. You have to get in through the back door, through the side window, through a crack in the roof if necessary. Because this is a privileged industry where the financial burden to access is monumental, not just for horse owners, but also for budding professionals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many years did you eat shit before that opportunity came your way?
I cleaned stalls for years. I don't know if it was 5 years, 6 years. It was a long time that I cleaned stalls, just waiting for my moment. I did all the lessons. I did all the clinics. I did all the internships. And, it just, I didn't have I didn't have the experience and I couldn't get the experience. You know how that goes. They won't give you experience because you don't have experience.
Yep. Catch 22.
And I got so lucky that training barn, the training manager had a drug problem, and I took over her students and her lessons because there was nobody else. And then pretty soon I was working as a trainer, teaching lessons, teaching kids, and just worked my way up from there.
One woman's drug problem. Leg problem? Maybe
she had leg problems.
What? No, I say leg problem because right as you're talking, my cat is trying to tip over one of the legs of my ring light. So it's a pure Freudian slip, which is very relatable. Cat, would you stop that? Do you need help? Can I let you out of the office? Half a second, Amy. I think I need to let them out. Going out? Go. No? Okay. Typical cat fashion. I open the door and he looks at me and says, "You're an idiot. I don't want to leave. I just want to get your attention." This will stay in the podcast, by the way. I also have a habit of leaving my toilet breaks on the podcast as well. People sit there in silence while I go to the toilet for 2 minutes. Just reminding people that I'm a human being who pees.
That's right.
I remember this was in 2021, summer 2021. So that's 3 years ago now. 3 summers ago. We're recording in July 2024. I was working at a stable, which was literally at the end of the road. We were like the drive up to this stable, the paved road finished at this stable, and beyond that was the national park. There were 20, 25 horses, depending how many went out on treks to care for. I was alone for a week because my boss and the others had gone out for client trekking. There were 20 horses to care for, 2 of which were mine. The shit heap was uphill, and we're talking mountains. So there wasn't a flat piece of nothing anywhere. The stables were like a labyrinth because they weren't built as stables originally. They were built as stables for smaller animals. So I was mucking out twice a day, 20 stables on my own, and then hay 3 times a day for these horses, which was about 5 bales of hay 3 times a day. And you had to push the hay 1 bale at a time in a wheelbarrow uphill to dispense it. It was 105 to 110 degrees in the shade that summer. And I was by myself, and I'm standing on top of a shit pile that was twice my height, emptying another wheelbarrow. And I thought, this is not it.
Yeah.
This is not it. My life is not going to be serving somebody else's dream in this way. This is not my dream. I've got other things to offer. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
A little under a year ago, I hired someone to help me clean my pastures for just my 4 horses on a small flat 5 acres. And so I'm sitting here at home today, just before I contacted you, and I'm thinking, why am I so tired today? I'm like, I'm tired because I've made that about face in 2.5 years, 3 years time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I understand you're going through a similar upheaval right now.
Yep. Yep.
Do you want to tell us more about that?
Well, it's just something I've thought about a lot, actually. I don't know a lot of clinicians who have marriages and kids who are doing the clinic route and it's going well. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my phone back on the right screen. I got married 7 years ago, excited. My career was just starting. I was just doing 7 clinics a year or something like that. And it starts to build. And a lot of the clinic route, I was forced to seek income. That's how it started. It wasn't like I was some rock star out touring and I was super, super in demand. It was like, I have to get money. I got pregnant very quickly after I got married, and it was like, holy crap, this is costing me everything I have. I have to get more sources of income. So the clinic thing kind of blew up, and, I'm out on the road working 16-hour days, training horses, have a baby, go right back to riding horses. And that kind of lifestyle takes a toll on any relationship. There was a lot of things that there was a lot of things that there wasn't time to deal with. You know what I mean? There wasn't time because there was too much work to be done, too many expenses, too much going on. My daughter was born and my son was born, and everything accumulates to a point where, you get 7 years later and you realize you don't know each other, and it is what it is. I have my part that I can take blame for and things that are out of my control, and um is what it is, right? So now I'm at the crossroads of trying to figure out how am I going to have a career where childcare costs me an insane amount of money. Just to ride one horse costs me more money than I can get paid, plus career. Like, how do you leave for a clinic with two little kids? I taught one clinic in Texas with my two kids, and it went really well because the people were very laid back, but it's not really fair to impose your children on the world. My kids are little and they're pretty spicy, so I have a lot of reinventing to do and figure out, how do I make a living? How do I feed these kids, plus keep my career, plus keep my sanity? It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to think about.
This is exactly the issue in our industry. And through all of this, I'd like to say, and I don't know what your relationship's like with a compliment, but I'm just going to go at it like a chainsaw.
It's very uncomfortable, so I'm going to be uncomfortable. So.
Me too. Yeah. welcome to a compliment discomfort. In fact, this podcast could probably be rebranded as complimentdiscomfort.com. Anyway, through all of this upheaval, pressure, the immense pressure, you've maintained training, which was horse first and horse focused. I'm going to hazard a guess to say that the reason why the equestrian industry or horse training in general remains largely so brutal is because the people tasked with the job of doing the training and the teaching are overextended, underpaid, overworked, underrested, underfed, under-resourced in every single way. And so at the end of the day, the bandwidth left available to consider the horse's opinion in this is minimal, if it exists at all. And to take on that burden as well, not only is it financially less viable to train horses patiently with the current models at our disposal, but our clients want it now. Often, so many professionals, and not to blame the clients because they're equally victims in this as the professionals are, but often I've seen a lot of my colleagues stuck in these sort of dead-end professional roles that are making enough of a living that they're able to tick on over each month, but not making enough that they can think about thriving or think about creativity or think about carving time aside for themselves. And so how can we innovate training if the trainers can't innovate? It's one of the just like the same catch-22 you and I experienced trying to crack into this industry. There comes another threshold where in order to be an innovator also, you've got to have like a sack of cash fall from the sky. And it's one of the reasons why I think we're not doing well as a community, because horses generally out there aren't doing too well. It's pretty crappy.
No, it's awful.
There are some exceptions to that rule, obviously, but I have often wondered before I got deeper into this, thinking, why are horses treated so bad, generally speaking? And then I got into it. I went, okay, the trainers aren't the boogeyman. I used to think trainers were the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And I think they're not, most of them. 2x4 trainers are a different situation. Like there are brutalists everywhere. But what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's exactly what you said. Everybody is squeezed on every side and there's no room, because on my end, I'm the trainer trying desperately to provide a good service with every resource and scrap that I have, trying to charge what's fair to me, but also fair to my client. A lot of it goes on my own dollar. A lot of it goes on my own time. I'm taking lessons with my teacher with the horses that are complicated to make sure I do a good job on my pocket. I am providing the best service that I possibly can, and it's not covering the bases. Then you have my clients who have a horse that they are trying desperately to take good care of, that they've gone the route of the training that didn't work and they've spent thousands and thousands. Now they want to do it right for their horse, but they're talking years of unraveling, years of rehab, years of this dental stuff, hoof stuff, health stuff. They're hemorrhaging money in every direction, right? I mean, I'm not getting rich off of it, but they are hemorrhaging money. And after years of training, they can probably reliably take their horse out of the stall and groom it and ride it around a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to Grand Prix.
Maybe.
They're not getting, maybe
ride it
they're
around
lucky.
a little.
Yeah, exactly. They're not getting accolades from their peers. They're cut off from all of their communities because what they're doing is so crazy, right? Nobody is winning in this scenario, right? Like, you have to really have a spine of steel to stay on that road and know that you're doing what's right for your horse, regardless of the financial strain, regardless of the strain on relationships, regardless of everything. So then it kind of comes down to like what a lot of my students this comes up all the time is, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. I don't know. I think I'm a psychotic person who's obsessed, and I do it because I am driven like a fire is in my bed to get me out to the barn, because I love this more than I love breathing. But that, for a hobby, do we love this enough to go through that kind of suffering? I don't know.
Damn. The math is not mathing.
It's not mathing.
The thing is not thinging. The late stage capitalist hellscape is real in every dimension. It's real in almost every sector that we're dealing with right now. But I think what's happening in the equestrian sphere is particularly toxic to everyone involved. Service provider, client, but mostly the buck stops with the horses. The horses are paying the biggest price. They're paying everyone else's taxes, and they didn't owe any taxes to begin with, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know? And so we're dealing with a defunct system. The whole thing doesn't work. The whole thing doesn't compute. And did it ever compute? And if it did compute, who did it compute for? I'm not sure it ever did. It's pretty egregious. And I think I recognized this personally pretty early on. I dipped my toe in the waters of training for the public and went, oh, no, hard left.
It's bad.
Hard left. Nah, because it's particularly toxic because the trainers love it so much. We would do it for free if we could. If you won $50 million, $100 million tomorrow, you would wake up tomorrow and you would do exactly the same life. You would have exactly the same lifestyle with less stress, but you would still go and work with your horses. You would still put hay out. You would still check your water. You would still fiddle with fences on your Sunday afternoon. You would still do all these things. I think that's exploited. And there's also a big problem, I think. Tell me if you agree. A lot of equestrian professionals hug an uncomfortable and incongruent blended line between 501c3 registered nonprofit and LLC as a business. Charity, business. Do it for the horses, ethical, moral, selfless. I don't want to charge too much. All of that storyline, plus the math needs to math. My grandfather was an accountant, and my father is an Australian expert in small businesses and industrial relations. And both of them looked at me when I was young and said, no business ever failed because it made money. You have a right to make money. It's not unethical to make a profit. And if there are clients telling you that it's unethical to make a profit, run, don't walk away from them. We have to stop serving them.
Well, you know what I realized is I have been running a charity for the 8 years.
Damn.
My daughter's 5 almost. So let's say it was pretty close to charity up until she was born. And when she was born, I suddenly realized, I got to pay for this thing to live. Her and me have to survive, right? And it's my job to pay for the entire farm, this little girl, me, everyone relies on my meal ticket, right? So then I started putting pedal to the metal. And so then I had to do a big shift of like, now I actually need to make money. And people were angry with me, and there were so many of my clients that I have dropped who were like, I can't afford this. I can't afford this. This is killing me. I can't afford this. So then I would go and drop their horse off at their friggin' mansion, their house. I live in a trailer on a farm, and I would drop their horse off at the most beautiful home I've ever seen. And I'm like, you have the audacity to steal money out of my infant baby's mouth, because you can't afford it after your second vacation to Rome. That happened to me so much that those are feelings that I have to sort out, that I was very resentful after that.
Much grace required, lots of therapy required. I have a very volatile response to that sort of human being. I think there's a special place in hell waiting for them. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
If you were a registered 501c3 with all of the government benefits that came about with, God forbid, if they were to throw some of their fortune behind you to help you register as a 501c3, and then you were going out on the road to do non-profit services, but you were covering all of your expenses and you were living a life and you were making a living, that's an entirely different service. I do have friends who function in this way in the Bay Area in California. They live a good life. They cover their bases. They're a registered charity. They are a non-profit, but they live a good life and they take care of their horses and they teach people. That's one way to do it. But if you're not doing that, there's also an accessibility issue in some countries to be a charity. I looked into it in Spain. In order to be a charity, I would have to invest a small fortune to start off with, which I didn't have.
Right.
So our only option, not coming from wealth, not coming from money, not coming from established ranching or farming or equestrian establishments, is to work our way up. And they know who they hired. Were there red flags at the beginning of your client relationship with them?
Of course, yeah. But I was so blinded by needing the money and hoping that the relationship would change.
So what were the red flags?
Well, they had tried every trainer in town. They couldn't afford their current dentist, or they were switching things, or they were fickle. They said all the right things about being there for their horse, but the actions didn't match up. Those are always I had to put him in this boarding barn where they only had stalls, but it was only because the drive was too long and Becky, my best friend, lived there and whatever, stuff like that. There's always the validating why they didn't do the right thing.
Okay. So excuses for poor choices. That's a red flag. Incongruent storytelling. Let's say
there's always a villain trainer in the story too. There's always a trainer who is the villain, who is ruined.
When I'm consulting with someone and they start giving me a villain storyline about their past trainer, the first and only thing that comes into my mind is, if they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you. Yeah.
It's always been true. I am probably the villain in a lot of people's stories after their villain story. I was hoping that I could I'll just provide good service and it won't happen to me.
Yeah. We come in with the hero complex. I can save them.
Absolutely.
They're just tricky. They're just difficult. I cut my teeth on difficult horses and difficult clients.
Exactly.
I can handle them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's got to stop.
Yeah. Well, no, you're not kidding.
So how have you managed to survive into this point, logistically, financially?
Well, the pivoting onto the online space has been also another thing I've been driven toward.
Yeah.
Because I have to do is take care of my children, and I have to have more money in less time. It's just a non-negotiable because I've got two children under 5, and they're home with me all day long. So the online courses have been how I have managed to stay afloat. And I am the interesting part is that I am giving less of myself and getting better appreciation, which is nuts.
Isn't that crazy when that starts happening?
Yeah. I have literally saved people's lives in clinics for 10 years. I have literally saved horses' lives. I've saved people. I have scraped everything together to help people in training in clinics. And I do these online courses and people are so thrilled with the results. And I'm like, I input 1/1 millionth of the energy level that I normally do. and more of the responsibility is on them to do it. And they're so much happier. They're so much more appreciative, and the results are much better, which is kind of blowing my mind, actually. Because there's a lot more personal responsibility on their part, and they love it.
The energy exchange ratio that we've been sold, conditioned culturally, is way off base. We thought it's 1 for 1. It's a meritocracy. I get out what I put in. So if I put in more, I'll get back more. What we're actually finding out, the more you put in, the more that they take. The more that you put in, the more you advertise yourself as someone who's vulnerable for exploitation, which makes you more tired, which makes you more vulnerable for exploitation, which puts you in worsening and worsening situations until you really will find yourself professionally completely up shit creek with no paddle.
Yeah. That sums it up.
Done that, got that t-shirt. And when I realized I'd gotten in there and I'd taken my family with me and my horses, the separation from that was and continues to be one of the most energetically expensive and draining experiences of my life.
Yeah.
So you have my full respect, admiration, and appreciation for what you're going through. And if you ever need to just whinge, moan, talk, you can reach out to me at any time.
I appreciate that. Do you know when I realized that what you had just said was 100% what I had done, which is that the more you give, the more people take, and the more they see you as an exploitable person, was when I announced that I was separating. I had clients angry with me. They were mad that I was upending their life, and my students, some of them were angry with me for making their life harder. And that's when it hit me that I was like, I am not even a person to some of these people. I don't have a life. This is an inconvenience to them. This is my life. But for them, it's an inconvenience. And that's when I realized, like, this has got to change. I can't keep doing this because I have lost even the status of being a human being.
Damn.
You know?
See, that I'm a nerd. I'm not a scientist, but I am a nerd. And as soon as I hear a story like that, my brain starts rapidly going through the Rolodex of what's the etymology of this? Okay.
Yeah.
So horses used to be owned by the wealthy and the elite and the lord and lady of the estate or whatever. And the serfs, the people who took care of the horses, were just the help. We were just, the trainers were stable boys. We were the underlings. We were like, be seen, not heard, do a task, thankless, etc., etc. And I feel like that dichotomy, that almost caste system, is kind of still in effect to this day. It just looks different. It just wears different clothes, but it's still culturally in place. I think what we're dealing with, Amy, what we've discovered, what we've touched on, is a trope that was prepared for us that we just fell into. It's like you're walking across a green meadow. We're on a road. You're on the yellow brick road, but in the middle of the yellow brick road, there's a hole dug for a coffin, and all of us fall into it.
Right.
And you think you're going to Oz, you think you're going to go meet the wizard, and you fall into the coffin. And how many of us climb out? I'm not sure many of us climb out. We've had to kind of like call bullshit on the whole situation. Right? And that's kind of what you're doing. I mean, you're pretty good at calling bullshit anyway, which I like that about you. I like that about you. I think that's
I'm glad.
I think that's I think it's kind of punk rock to be able to say, nah, bullshit to anyone about anything.
Well, you know what the thing is about calling bullshit is people think if you call bullshit that you think you're blameless, and that's not the case at all.
Oh no.
I am bullshit in the bullshit, seeing the bullshit, and that's I just think I'm an observer. Right. I am not better than anybody. I'm a hot mess.
No. People who call bullshit are usually qualified to call bullshit because they are bullshit artists themselves. Exactly. And we're actually qualified.
Yeah.
My moment where I started calling bullshit was a little bit different. It wasn't necessarily because I'd had a bad interaction with a client. It was because I had a really, really good one. And I'm going to name her because I know she'll be delighted to be named. Not her last name. Her name's Jacqueline. She lives in Ireland. She's a doctor, the local GP in a small community in rural Ireland. And she was an adult amateur getting into horses. She was at a really toxic local boarding barn, really toxic. I mean, the stories make milk curdle. Stories she used to tell me. she used to have coaching sessions with me, which were essentially just emotional support to navigate having to deal with the fact that her livery manager would smack her mares on the nose for having their faces over their stall openings.
Yeah.
So stuff like this. And getting into it, and, we're having a bunch of sessions over a couple of years, and she started working her way out of it. She found a piece of land. She built a stable. She moved her horses to it. She started living in paradise with her horses. I had a session with her. She booked, and this was several price rises ago, so she was in a totally different price bracket. She booked a 1-hour session with me, and she had a bunch of questions. She showed up on time. She had prepaid. She was really prepared. She's like, "Hi, Lockie, how are you? Blah, blah. It's great to see you, etc., etc. We're doing really, really well. Here are my questions." I listened to the questions. I doubled on the questions. Did I understand the questions? Yes, I did. Answered her questions. She went, great. Thanks so much, Lockie. Well, it must be late in the evening for you, because it was 9:30 in the evening for me, because I was working until 10 most days.
Yeah.
She said, well, it must be late for you. So thanks so much. Have a great evening. I went, wait, Jackie. It's like you've got 40 minutes left.
Uh-huh.
She's like, oh, no, that's fine. You have it. Go have a nice evening. I was like, do you want your money back? She's like, no, keep the money. I'm delighted. Every year she buys a lesson package during my Christmas sales. And so far this year, she hasn't used a single lesson. And she wrote to me recently and said, I reminded them about redeeming their bookings. She said, thanks so much for the reminder, Lockie. We're doing really well. I just love feeling that if I needed you, I've got you on call. Otherwise, keep the money. That happens to me all the time. I had a lady who booked a session recently who said, who wrote me and said, actually, I'm in a really good place with my horses, but I want you to keep the money as a donation towards your work. And I'm like, where are these people coming from? What have I done? What did I do? What shit did I eat in a past life in order to be so lucky? But I realized I paid for it in this life. Yeah. And I realized that the filters I put out on social media, the way I come across to people is sometimes abrasive, and that's on purpose. Because I'm trying to filter out.
Yeah.
You understand? And then when I started having such positive interactions with people, and they're an extreme example, most of the people I work with are just fabulous. They show up on time, they're respectful, we have fun, we get real with each other, we help each other, and we're finishing and we're moving on, and it's great. But once you start having good interactions with clients, it's like, well, that's my standard now, and I'm going to hold everyone to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. The mistake that I've made in all of my life, really, which is an egotistical mistake, is assuming that the whole world sees the way that I do. It's taken me forever to understand that, my career was so hard to get into that a paid internship was, fuck yeah, I'm going to pay and ride your horses and clean your stalls and drive 36 hours straight to get there. I am so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much for giving me a bone, right? And then I have an employee I'm paying $25 an hour to, and giving her free lessons, and paying for her clinics, and paying for education. And she's angry with me that I didn't give her enough. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell? How could you not be thrilled for this amazing opportunity? But again, I'm seeing the world through my perspective, that everybody will be grateful to have more given to them because I consumed everything given to me. But most people, for whatever reason, have to have it be expensive and hard to get to appreciate it. And I've been too easy and too cheap and too available for too long.
Say it again. Say
too easy, too cheap, too available, right? Like,
can you say it again?
Say what?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah, too easy, too cheap, too available. But from the perspective that I'm going to be able to help people more, assuming they think the way that I do, and they don't, because I'm me and they're them, Not that I'm better or worse, not at all. It's just
different points of reference, different inputs.
Totally different points of, and the girl that, was mad at me for not giving her more, she was born into a horse family, had a covered arena built for her, totally different upbringing. So of course she thinks she's not getting enough because her expectation is here. Mine was, thanks for the shit sandwich. I'd love another one, Thank you for letting me pay you to do your work and clean your stalls,
Damn.
Thank you. It's a totally different perspective.
I think it slices both ways. I get messages on a semi-regular basis from different directions, from Instagram or from my YouTube or whatever, saying something like, do you have intern opportunities? Can I come as a volunteer? Basically saying, can I come and eat your shit for you? And my response has always been thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Now, it would benefit me enormously to have someone here for free, doing all the hard labor. That would benefit me enormously. But I just can't stomach exploiting someone in that manner.
Sure.
Even when I did internships, and I did 3 internships, I paid them to come and intern with me. I made sure they were covering their costs to come and intern with me. And as it was hard enough for me to get the time to go and teach them. And some of them wanted different sort of arrangements. So I ended up landing on the need of having an employee, someone that I pay with the government involved, and I pay their social security. And in the future, they will get a retirement benefit package from the government because of my employment with them. And I have to comply with national regulations for health and safety inspections, and I have to do all sorts of things. And it's really, really expensive. But I would rather do my best there, even though it's a very tight squeeze for me, and get the support I require that way without exploitation, than to say yes to willingly exploiting someone. And this is a theme, like a lot of equestrian businesses are built on the notion that they will exploit people in order to get ahead. Because they're kind of doing the same thing to the horses, don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about how many people I've worked with who are like, oh, she's a fabulous mare. She gets treated like a queen. She loves her job. She gets fed better, taken care of better. And I'm like,
let's take a break. As we're coming towards the end of season 1, I thought I'd circle back on what's most important. What's most important here for me in emotional horsemanship is the foundation that I use in training horses. The foundation that I use in training horses has been curated after way more than my 10,000 hours and many, many horses I've long since lost count that I've tried and practiced again my methods out on and shared them with. And out of that, I came across some techniques which are proprietary to me. And those techniques I teach in the Emotional Horsemanship Foundation online course. It's a prerequisite to working with me personally, and it's almost always the first stepping stone that I recommend people step onto if they're interested in learning with me in emotional horsemanship. Emotional horsemanship is not just marketing psychobabble. It's not just a word that means like nothing. It's not just a fad. This is me giving you the best and most accurate description of exactly what it is that I do with horses and why I do it that way. Fun fact and secret hint, most people don't understand at all what emotions are and why they're important. So, if you'd like to learn what emotional horsemanship is, please consider signing up for the Emotional Horsemanship Foundation online course. I've got a link in the show notes below, or you can go to emotionalhorsemanship.com and follow the prompts. And with that, let's return to this conversation with my colleague, Amy Skinner.
Who are like, oh, she's a fabulous mare. She gets treated like a queen. She loves her job. She gets fed better, taken care of better. And I'm like, yeah, so you're feeding her top of the line feed, but it doesn't matter how she feels when performance is involved, because at the end of the day, she is a well-managed tool, you know? Isn't that what's happening to all of us? It's why we are so willing to pass it on to somebody else, because I suffered, so you should have to, you know?
Damn.
You know, I mean, the trainer who is taking the horse to that show is also exploited and also not having a great time. A well-managed tool, probably less managed than the horse, but still, you know.
And that's been personally, Amy, that's been my biggest shift over the last 6 months, is seeing the trainers in this picture as equal victims as the horses are. That's been my biggest shift, seeing them, even the people in the Helgestrand issue in Denmark, I see them as unwitting components of a greater machine that was designed to break them and the horses.
Yep.
Okay, so after all that doom and gloom, where to from here?
Well, my big thought right now is that people are happiest when they are given tools to do it themselves. That's been what I have come away with, is the training has been really fun. The rehab has been really fun. I thought of it as a public service, but I really am starting to see now that it was mostly for me, for my education, for my well-being, for my peace of mind, that these horses are happy and well cared for. But at the end of the day, I'm shutting down my barn. All the horses are dispersed. What's going to become of them? Do the owners have
how many
the tools?
horses in your training barn?
I had 8.
Damn.
So now my focus, I think, needs to be on teaching people the skills of managing husbandry. That's a huge one. Okay. Husbandry is halfway an impossibility because of the way that most boarding barns are set up, because of the land access that we have, because of what it costs to run your own farm. But husbandry to me is like 75% of the training. Is if the husbandry isn't it ain't gonna work, you know?
Right.
Because I get all these consults where they're like, my horse is really having bad separation anxiety. Okay, talk to me about the living setup. Well, she lives by herself in a private paddock, 16 hours a day, and she gets 2 flakes of hay morning, 2 flakes of hay night. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but that's the problem. There's nothing I can say that will fix that. So you got to fix sorry, there's somebody showing up here.
No worries.
Oh, we're good. Sorry, random truck pulling down my driveway. You gotta fix the life of this horse. Nobody's gonna thrive in a prisoner of war camp. And let's just be honest, that's what we're doing. We're separating herd animals, making them live alone, making them live according to our standards, which I understand a lot of us don't have money for a 17-acre farm, but you got a horse, it needs to horse. The horse has to horse or we can't continue.
Yes. The horse has to horse, or the horse doesn't horse, and it's not horsemanship, it's just manship.
Yeah, it's just making something.
Sometimes there's no ship involved either, it's just man,
Yeah. So my focus really now is on empowering people with the knowledge and the skills to do it themselves. I think that's the only way.
I agree with you very much so. And when we look around, and we're often scratching our heads why basic knowledge, basic handling, basic riding and equitation is so low on the totem pole, is it because trainers, through no fault of their own, due to the pressures they're under and the unique situation they find themselves in, have been literally and figuratively taking the reins from the owners and returning to them what appeared to be on the surface a push-button horse, where they were in secret behind the owner's back when the owner wasn't looking, maintaining those horses' buttons that the owner was sometimes doing a great job of tearing apart every time they rode them. And then the trainer steps in and puts the horse back together and gives it back to the owner shreds it, horse comes back to the trainer puts them back together, gives them back to the owner, and around and around we go. And in fact, if we look at the 30, 60, 90-day training model, this came out of French cavalry systems, where horses were trained for 30, 60, 90 days to go off to war. But in World War I, approximately 1% of the millions of equines that went to war returned. So these 30, 60, 90-day programs, that structure was never designed for long-term success. It was designed to cycle through like a machine, expendable. And this is why horses who come out of those programs, I think of the etymology and the history of it, that's why horses who come out of these programs cycle back into them, whether it's with the same trainer or a different one. It's potato, potato, tomato, tomato. They go from one trainer to the next, one trainer to the next, another 30 days. They look better for 6 months. They go back to a trainer again. It's this nauseating wheel that just keeps going on and on. Meanwhile, the owners are left just paying the bill, and then they get on and they're given this illusion that, you can just have horses to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. And so now the owners are having to pick up the buck emotionally and realize, oh, this isn't much fun. It's like, well, it's never been much fun sometimes, actually. Just the trainers have been eating that shit sandwich.
So I actually started my training. Well, it wasn't my start, but it was about halfway through. I realized that I couldn't afford to work for myself. So I worked for another man whose job 60, 90. 90 was like was a huge prize. It was huge. 30 days was it. And so I started 8 to 12 horses per month, just rolling. And I didn't have time to think about that paradigm really. So I was just super busy, right? And then the horses started getting more difficult, and it's still 30 days. Then it was getting bucked off, but don't tell the owner because I don't want him to be scared. And then these horses would come in with owners who had never owned a horse before, brand new horse owners, but they bought a Mustang. And I would say to my boss, don't you think that we should talk these people out of this horse? And he said, this is business, baby. What do you think is going to happen if everybody suddenly gets horse sense? Because they bought a horse that is basically a guarantee. He said this to me a lot. He said, they bought a horse that is guaranteed job security.
What are we going to do if everyone suddenly gets horse sense? Be out of a job.
That's what he said. And so, that's what he said is it's job security. These people don't know what they're doing, and it's our job to take their money and give them a packaged up horse. And so I would be up all night worried about these people at the end of 30 days taking their horse home. And guess what? Those horses would come back in for a tune-up. And that's when I realized this paradigm does not work. It doesn't work. I'm at risk because I'm getting bucked off all the time, getting hurt. The owners are at risk because they're getting sent to the hospital on a life flight helicopter. I got $1,000. This sucks.
See, I knew that this is what we were dealing with. I figured this out pretty quick. I came into this industry, total alien, coming in from a ballet career. Are you joking me? Come in total alien. And I'm going, what the hell? It's like walking into a fun house. It's just like, what is going on? And I've been telling this story of this paradigm is here to deceive you. This paradigm is here to exploit you and take your money. And this dream you've been sold of a push button animal that you can go ride and trail and have fun with, and that's an innocent pursuit of yours that you pay, you should be entitled. That the powers that be have designed it so that you think that way because they're trying to exploit you and back you into a corner where you need constant reliance on them. And I've been actively trying to call bullshit on this, and people have looked at me with their eyes crossed like I'm crazy. Like I've said to people, no, I will not do that for you. This is at a clinic recently. I said to a dear client, I said, no, I will not do that for you right now because I'm trying to teach you how to do it so that you don't need me forever.
Exactly. They are so conditioned
to
expect that when you tell somebody, let me empower you and teach you, they feel abandoned. They feel hurt.
File not found.
Yeah.
File not found. We need a new construct for trainer. We need a new construct, a new concept for horsemanship business. We need an entirely new data points, new point of reference, new data points, new rules, new playing field. That's what we really need.
Yeah. I think that being honest with clients about what they're getting into when they get a horse. What can you handle? What's your physical ability? And what is it like? As trainers, we shield our clients from the reality of everything that it takes to have a horse. I'm up all night fixing fencing, or I was up all night with your sick horse, or I woke up at 5 a.m. to hold your horse for the farrier. Can you do that? Are you going to do that? Because when this horse leaves my barn, guess whose ass is out in 100-degree summer? I'm used to that. Are you going to do that?
Okay.
So we need to stop presenting it as you can have this pretty little package for a sum of money, because I think we're seeing that's not reality.
No, it's not reality. My system of training, and it's taken me a long time to put it together, has designed this from the ground up with this as primary feature from the ground up, and took me a long time to arrive on the wording of deeply caring equestrians. That's who I quote unquote market to. Now, my person who helps me with marketing has been on this podcast because I know nothing about it. I'm just trying to be honest and trying to be myself. And she's helped me sort of bring who I am to market. I like to say she used to tame Mustangs herself, my business assistant, my business mentor. She found me like a Mustang out there in the middle of nowhere and tamed me. She's like, people have to be able to approach you, and you need to resemble something. You need to not kick the farrier. Like she's had to like train me in that way as a business. But I say deeply caring equestrians because I want to work with people who are willing to take care. And so it's been my experience, it is a selection bias, but it's been my experience that when you turn this responsibility over to them, this whole other world cracks wide open for the horse owner, where they're like, oh my God, it is so lovely to like take care of them well and to see them thriving, then train them knowing exactly what I'm dealing with. I know, like Princess and the Pea, what is underneath the layers of this horse, and I'm able to feel if something's off with that horse to the most infinitesimal minutiae of it, because the owner has had their hands in the dough, kneading it from the beginning. And I stopped riding at clinics, other people's horses. I wear my riding boots just in case. But I stop riding at clinics. I'll only demonstrate if I ascertain that they're a visual learner. Yeah. Or if I need to introduce something new. Otherwise, I try to explain it all verbally, because with my online work, I've been forced to learn how to do that. I've been forced to like explain. Anyway, it's a whole new world now. Yeah.
That's kind of been my marker as well for what is the client going to be like. Because for me, if you don't love the process of learning, and if you don't love taking care of your horse, it's not going to work out. If you don't find joy in just making your horse feel good, you're not going to have this, you're not going to stick to this. It's not going to be fun for you. If you're doing it like, and what happens a lot is they stick to it for a period of time. Like, I can wait so much time, then I want the results. I've put in the time, I've put in the money. Where's my such and such thing? And I tell my students that I take lessons every single week with a very classical trainer. I bust my butt in all kinds of weather. And you know what I'm working on right now? Picking up my reins more tactfully. Because I got in trouble for gripping with my pinky too tight, and I upset my horse, and I got in trouble, and I got my reins removed, and I have to pick up my reins correctly so that my horse isn't offended. And do you know how long I've been riding with her? 10 years. Yeah. There is no canter pirouette into the sunset happening. I am addicted to the process of making my horse happy. And so that lesson was a great one for me. But I had to change my mindset. So if you don't love that, you're not going to love this.
Yes. I said recently, I don't even know where I said it. It might have been on a podcast, that the basics are the basics. We do them because they're hard, not because they're easy. That's why we do them first. That's why they're the basics. Yeah. Basics are the hardest thing ever to do. And that's why we do them first. I put everyone who was in just about everyone who was on my regular lesson program this past winter, there was a 3-month period there where all of them were working on leading their horses. All of them. Yeah. All of them, because that's through de-escalation. That's what we came to. I'm like, there's the original sin. Someone put a halter on that 6-month-old and started dragging it around. And that's where all the problems started for that horse. So we've got to go back to original sin and let's start there. One of them in particular, her horse was so behavioral to lead, he was dangerous. Big dude, big German-looking dude, jumping around on the end of the lead rope with her, dragging her. He was intermittent high-low, planting his feet, disassociating, or he was rearing, plunging, diving, and biting at her on the end of the lead rope. Yikes. 2 days ago, she had her first walk trot canter session with me under saddle, and it was divine. It was she was weeping. Now, I made her get riding blue balls for about 9 months, having her lead her horse all over that farm. And when I recommended that to her, there was a moment where she was like, that doesn't sound like much fun. I said, but this is what I've discerned is appropriate for him right now. Yeah. If you do this, you're not wasting your time. I had to kind of convince that the metric of success and the metric of reinforcement, positive association for the owner is something different now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have to change their goalposts, and you have to change what you consider beautiful.
So what do you consider to be beautiful with the horse, Amy?
Well, to me now, at this point, a reward for me, a beautiful thing to see is a horse breathing better, having a happier expression, and moving better. Those are the 3 things that I need to be happy. And without those things, I can't love it. I can't. But it used to be, what can I make the horse do? And then it was, how can I make the horse do it lighter? And then it was like, that's the wrong question, right? Mm-hmm. Who cares? I can make horses do a lot. I have found out that I have some things inside me that I don't love. I can make horses do a lot. That's good for when there's a barn fire and I can get your horse in the trailer. Come hell or high water, he's getting on there. I can pull that out of myself, but I don't like it. I like who I am when my teacher is yelling at me about my pinky. That's who I want to be, right? And so for me, I need the horse to be breathing deeply. I need them to enjoy the moving. Then the movement has to be rewarding itself. Just moving around, not rewarded after you do the thing, rewarded because it feels good to move. And they have to have a pleasant expression on their face while doing it. Otherwise, I don't like it. And what that means is that I'm never satisfied with anything, and I keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it's better, pushing myself to do it better so that they can have those three experiences. But I realize that those metrics are different for me than they are for a lot of people, because when I'm teaching a clinic, I'm like, oh, this is so much nicer. And people are like, he's not doing anything. Like, I wanted him to stand still at the block and now he's not doing it. Or I wanted him to trot and he's not trotting. Or I don't think you heard me, because our metrics are different. And I'm not judging them because I was there. I remember when my teacher would give me a lesson and be like, we never did the thing that he was supposed to do. Are we just going to let him get away with that? That's how I used to think. So I remember that, and I try not to judge as much, but those are my metrics, and I don't want to play if I can't have those things. I don't want to ride, I don't want to be involved. People are always like, you've got to ride my horse. He's so cool. And I'm like, I don't want to play. His back doesn't move and he doesn't breathe when you ride. I'm not going to have any fun.
I love it. I love this. I love everything you're saying. And I feel like, are you a bot that's in my head? Are you Chat GPT, Amy Skinner, looking at my algorithms? Because I feel like we're singing from the same hymn sheet. I sometimes get really heavy at a clinic, or I make light of it. Depends on my mood that day. But I'll say almost every clinic, I'll say off the bat, this is a low to no dust clinic.
Yeah.
This is a slow foundational clinic. I have to kind of couch it for them and deliver it to them. Now I've got a whole pre-clinic online course where I have a 10-minute chunk on punctuality, which is a whole other that's a whole other ball game. But it's something I so agree with you on, that when we look at upper level performance horses who are in distress, they're in distress because the point of reference, the metric, the goalpost that people are using to judge that horse, we're just not even playing the same game anymore.
I truly believe that horses can perform those movements and breathe happily, but I have not yet achieved it because I have trained the movements and I've trained for happy. I haven't done them both yet. And it's my experiment to see what level can I take these movements to without losing my horse? That is the answer I do not have. But I don't know, because people always say, well, they're athletes, they're focusing, they're stressed because running is hard. And I'm like, I don't buy that.
Yeah, that's half of the issue. The most I've ever done with a horse, if we're talking about skill set, Amy, I've taken a horse to a piaffe. I've taken a horse to a tempi change. I've taken a horse to a canter pirouette. People might disagree with me about the level of quality that we achieve once we're there. I don't give a shit. Don't write me. I don't care. All I know is that that's what I've managed to achieve for myself and my work. Do I need to go there all the time? No. Most of the time, because I love to trail ride, I just really like a horse that's on a loose rein with ears forward, walking out real good. That's what I really like. But I digress. I do have ex-performance horses here, different types of ex-performance horses here at my home. And how do I explain this to you? How do I share this with you? Give me a moment. Because I'm trying to reach down deep inside me and pull out language that right now has only been a feeling. When I was a dancer, I did things with my body that I didn't know I could do. Now, sometimes I achieved them under duress. When I say duress, the teachers who were applying that duress, I participated in a 18-month legal investigation into allegations of child abuse that they had done to children. And my 8 hours of deposition was fundamental in making sure they would never work again. So when I say duress, this is what I'm talking about. I got through it okay because I was mentally strong. I had someone with me on my side. Others who got through that duress ended up suicidal, on a suicide watch, mental institution, all sorts of nervous system disorders, seizure disorders, all sorts of things have happened to some of my colleagues from that dance industry. But I've achieved things under duress, and I've achieved things under a positive duress, where I worked my body to a level that I didn't know it could go to. And it was hard. And I'm dripping with sweat. If you've ever felt your every pore in your body wet and continuing to pour forth, and your body gets so liquid, so warm that it can go to new places, and then you're on music, and then you do that with other people, with a partner, and it feels good. There's something about that which is spectacular and divine. It's like a meditation, but like an active meditation. I do believe that in horses, because we have similar nervous systems, if not the same, some horses will have their game face on, but they're in it. They are so in it. Maybe they're in it for duress, under duress, and maybe they're not. In order to ascertain whether they are or not, I look at their emotional state. So I do agree with you on that one. And I don't think the piece I might lovingly challenge you on is the need for it to have like a mono expression. Yes to the breathing, yes to the happy expression, but my goal is not necessarily a mono expressive horse that looks one type of way. I feel like that's a slippery slope to kind of boxing yourself into another type of perfectionism, and I want more options, not less. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's a really good point, because I think, like you said, to get to that point where you were in your moving meditation, first you go through the duress to the other side, right? There's like, I don't know if I can do this. Oh, here I am. Look at this is nirvana, right? So the expression does not have to be perfectly pleasant. I just mean, I don't want foam dripping down my horse's chest anymore. I don't want gnashing teeth. I don't want the whites of their eyes and the wrinkles. I don't want these horribly pricked ears that I was so used to as I was training in dressage. That was the norm. I can't see that anymore.
I get you. So if we took all of those extreme data points off the table, what other data points are on the table in a horse's expression? What are we going to sanction? You know, I think this is also a really important question, especially if we're looking at performance horses. I mean, the Olympics are right around the corner. Aachen is going on right now, and I can't look, you know. What kind of expressions are we going to sanction?
Well, you know, it's a bigger picture than just the current expression, because the thing I'm interested is, what is the recovery like? In other words, when you finish the piaffe and you go on the loose rein to do your free walk, when's the last time you saw a free walk where the horse's neck fully extended and their recovery was quick? They can't. You've got 5 seconds going across the diagonal, and the horse is like, oh, like, shit, are you sure I can put my... Nope, never mind, here it goes again.
The mid portion of their cervical spine extends, but their hyoid apparatus and AO joint remain locked in this position.
They never fully extend. Never, right? So, okay, it was a little stressful in the piaffe. That was hard. We hit our mark. We did it. Oh, now we're okay. When do you see that, right? What is the recovery like? Last week, my horse and I were having a lesson, and it was really windy, and 2 twin fawns jumped out of behind my fence and spooked my horse. And he spooked, and he had a little turtle, and then he was like, oh, okay, we're fine. And he put his neck back out, and that we get. This is the first time he spooked in a long time, so I was interested by that. But it's not that important that he spooked. It's important that he recovered, that the two of us were right back into business. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to be tension free, but there has to be another side where we can recover, because we have a baseline of connection like that.
Love that metric, Amy. I love that metric. Yeah. And you know which equestrian sport has been doing this for years really well, that we should all be listening to, is the endurance community.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They will flunk horses out at different checkpoints if their heart rate doesn't return to X and their temperature doesn't return to X in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a fabulous metric that we need all horse sports to kind of be adopting and augmenting some sort of version of that. I love the idea of recovery, because I have the same concept when it comes to emotional expression and to physical balance, frankly. I'm not interested in a horse that's able to hold a good position if when they get off that position, they have a meltdown or they get injured. I want to see how well a horse can go off balance and recover. I mean, my recovering, dressage horse at home who's traded hands with some of the people who he can literally throw his neck out walking over a molehill.
Yeah.
And I've got that sucker turned out 24/7.
Yeah.
And so training him, it's like a constant hypervigilance to gradually expose him to the ability to recover.
Yeah.
Because a locked body and position is not balanced, in my opinion, though it can look like
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. No, you're so right. And I think that is that's what the free walk is supposed to demonstrate. That's what the Überstreichen is supposed to demonstrate, is the ability to release. And that's what dressage has gotten away from so much. It's turned into a holding, and it has not turned into a self-carriage test, because I tell people in my clinics or lessons all the time, stop what you're doing and leave on a straight line. Stop what you're doing and lengthen the rein. Stop what you're doing and sit the trot. Stop what you're doing and canter. What do you have? Test your shit. Stop doing these little circus trick movements as if they live in isolation. You're supposed to be teaching the horse to balance. So stop what you're doing and go do something. And what do you have? And they're like, well, I can't let him go, or well, then you don't have anything. Your contact is not contact if you can't let it go. Test what you're doing. This is supposed to be for training cavalry horses, right? Who wants a cavalry horse you can't let go for a second to slash down your enemy, right? You're supposed to be able to have a straight line on a loose rein as the product, where you let the horse go and pull the wedgie out of your ass or look at your phone or whatever, and the horse still goes straight, right?
Yes.
You're not holding this whole thing together. So that means your horse is going to pop their head up, or they are going to fall in, or they are going to whatever. And that's where, the pearl clutching comes, because people are like, heavens, oh, his head is up. And I'm like, did anyone die? Everything is going to be okay.
I love
Recover forward. Yeah.
I need to see you in the halls of kings and queens delivering exactly this message, turning them the pearl clutches and saying, did anyone die? No, on we go. The horse made an atypical position because they needed to, and it was an honest expression of the moment. Okay.
Yeah.
And if our horses can't do that, what on earth are we doing? I think we've totally misunderstood biomechanics. That's a whole other conversation that I frankly am a little bit afraid to reveal all of my thoughts on the subject outside of the realm of inner circle client communities, because as soon as you pop your head above the parapet, it's a machine gewehr of the biomechanical Nazis. But that's another reason why I'm going to get cancelled. But
that's question. All right. We can get canceled together.
Great question. When riding, you know how there are some people that need 17 aids to ride a corner?
Yeah.
To the point of micromanagement. And within each aid, there are multiple moving parts, elements to the aid. How many aids would you sanction at any one time? And how many elements inside those aids would you sanction at any one time? Have you ever thought about it that way?
Yeah, so something my teacher is very, very good at teaching, I think, and something I'm very grateful for, because I was in the thousands of aids camp before.
Well,
and she has
that's what you needed when you were in that 30-day program. You needed thousands of aids at one time because it was MacGyver. It was MacGyver horsemanship.
It is MacGyver, yeah.
It was cable ties, cling film, and hope holding those horses together. Bailing time.
So my teacher is adamant now that there is only one aid to be given at any given time. And you do not increase and you do not add more if it isn't working. So riding a corner requires one aid, which is looking around the corner. And what that entails
uncompromising. Uncompromising. I love it.
And this is why I'm laughing, because I've been riding with her for 10 freaking years. And I had my first good corner experience 2 weeks ago. Damn. Where she was like, Amy, stop fiddle fucking, and look where you're going. And I was like, inside rein, outside, the old shit in me is coming up. And she's like, look point to point. Look at your sign, look at the wall. And I'm like, oh, the horse is bending. And she's like, I told you, you're overriding the shit out of this horse. So basically I have to look around the corner where my eyes, shoulders, and arms and body are all going in the same direction. And the horse gets in the middle and is like, thank you, Jesus. And we turn a corner. And I have it on video for proof. That is the most beautiful corner I've ever ridden in my life. Super proud of it. But do you know how hard it is to do less than to add more? It's so much easier to tell people more leg, more rein, squeeze in this. Don't let him get away with that. He's falling. He's lost, blah, blah, blah. when all you have to do is to look where you're going and make your eyes and your body point in the same direction, and there's your corner, right? That's what everything is, all the way up to half pass, tempi change, zigzag, whatever. That's what it is. The horse is under your seat, your brain and your body are going in the same direction, end of story. It's not easy at all, because the creepy micromanagings come in, right? As your leg creeps up because you want to make that shoulder stop falling, or your arm comes up, or your eyes track that way and your shoulders are tracking that way. It's all just getting it's the only aid you need is your mind, because the body follows, because that's how you're designed, right? You're the nervous system nerd, not me. But if you're looking to the right, your body tends to go that way. Am I right?
Yes, generally speaking. But we'd also be operating underneath the assumption that this person in the picture is congruent and has tools to begin with. I have so much to say on this subject. Are you still with me? Because your video is frozen.
I am, and I actually, I don't want to interrupt you, but I am going to lose service very quickly.
Oh.
Because of this, there's a thunderstorm rolling through, and I can feel it happening.
Okay. So
we might have to wrap up and maybe hop on another one another time. I'm really sorry.
Okay. Well, let's just keep going for another few minutes and see if I suddenly lose you. And if I lose you, we can make it a 2-part conversation. But I try to give, for my students, I allow them 3 aids at any one time, but they have to apply them one at a time.
That's great.
One after the other. One thing, next thing, and then the next thing. No more than 3. And inside of those aids, I give them 3 elements inside of those aids that they can use at any one time. First, they've got to learn each of the aids, and they've got to understand each of the elements inside the aids, and they've got to apply them. And I try to give them that. I just think it gives some beginners a little bit more to work with initially. But privately, I think it's the ultimate de-escalation is arriving at 1 aid at a time. I've been playing with unilateral riding, so riding one side of the horse at a time, only working with one, because the thoracic sling can only lift unilaterally. The hindquarters can only engage unilaterally. The entire horse only works one side at a time. So I've privately, academically been playing with that on my own with, maybe at haphazard results. But I love haphazard results because that's where all the creative juices start flowing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. I think mistakes are extremely important. It's how I've arrived at the point that I'm at. Not that it's perfection, but it's better than what I did, because I failed so hard for so long, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start rounding out the episode in lieu of your incoming thunderstorm.
Yeah, it's getting worse out there. So
on cue. But I have 3 questions that I like to finish these conversations with. If I can take you through them, you can spend as long or as short on them as you feel necessary or appropriate. First question is, and we've kind of been covering it the entire episode, but you can encapsulate it. I call it "What the Muck," or inviting you to muck out with me something in the equestrian industry that makes you say, "What the muck?"
I think we just did all of them.
Right. Encapsulate it.
I think it's the poor trainer trope. I'm tired of it.
The poor, struggling trainer trope.
Yeah, and that one.
I'll muck that out with you.
Yeah.
It's got to go.
Yeah.
Nobody's winning.
Nobody's winning.
Yes. Okay. And the next one is about the tide of change. We are experiencing an enormous tide of change in the equestrian industry in real time. It's happening before our eyes. Like the natural horsemanship movement of 20 years ago, we're going through another shift right now. How do you contribute towards the tide of change, or how do you define it?
I think I'm contributing to it by helping learners learn, be more empowered to learn. You're not a consumer, you are a learner. I want to change that entirely.
Not a consumer.
You're not purchasing your way through this. You are learning. It is a learning journey, to use a campy term.
I love campy terms here.
They work.
Very campy term, safe zone. I will encapsulate the tide of change today with you, inspired by you, as not only are horse owners waking up and contributing towards change, but service providers are waking up too.
Yeah.
Service providers are waking up and realizing that the system they're in is ruining their life, and they would like to have their cake and eat it too. They would like to do good work and do good life as well. And it's easier said than done, but I'm so here for that tide of change. As much as I'm here for the revolution in methodology of training, as much as I'm here for the revolution in how we treat clients and how clients feel in the industry, I am absolutely here for how service providers feel in the industry, and that this change belongs and is entitled to them as well. That's what I'll...
Well, I've done a lot of good work. I'm ready to have a good life. And now that I'm a parent of 2 kids, I think about it more than ever. I'm ready. I haven't had a life. I haven't had a life in 10 years. I haven't had a vacation. I haven't had any fun. I haven't done anything except work, and I'm ready to have a life. What better time to think about that than on the cusp of a divorce? That if I don't change now, what kind of a life am I going to have?
Yes. I'm listening, Amy, and I'm taking notes because I feel like I'm in a similar place emotionally in my business right now. Any one of my clients listening, don't panic. I'm not going to suddenly dip out of here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I just might be showing up in new forms and with new energy soon. Okay. And my last question is, in an age of learning journeys, I think we might have forgotten that a journey's only a journey if it eventually comes home. Otherwise, it's just homelessness. So to stop this fog of intellectual crises and confusion and horsemanship homelessness out there, Amy, what's home for you in this industry? What is home for you?
I love learning. That's what I want to do. As long as I'm learning and creating and growing, I'm happy. It's when I feel I'm chasing the hamster wheel of working, producing, getting money, I'm not happy. I need to be learning to be happy. That's home.
I love it. And in fact, I had another meeting today that I canceled so that I could spend time learning for myself, because that's what I needed. And then, I felt like, I don't know, I was drawn to get you on the conversation today. I'm so glad that I did. Amy, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you go.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
It's a lot of fun.
My pleasure. You have a lovely rest of your day, and see me as a friend and reach out anytime you want to talk, all right?
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Emotional Horsemanship Podcast. That was my guest, Amy Skinner. And you can find out more about Amy Skinner by going to amyskinnerhorsemanship.com. And you can find out more about Emotional Horsemanship and the Foundation Online course by going to emotionalhorsemanship.com. Thank you for being here. And I'm sad but also excited to say that next week is going to be the last episode of season 1 of this podcast, of which I hope will be many seasons. 35 episodes in. And I've got a very special guest lined up for the final episode. Stay tuned.